How's it going, guys? Just before we start today's episode, I just want to say a massive thank you for being here, for tuning in, having a listen, having a watch to the show. Truly makes a massive difference. And I just know you're going to come away from here with something just really good from this episode. However, I just want to say quickly that over the last couple of years doing this podcast, we have gone from 0 to 100 in this podcast with just the quality, the editing, the guest range. And that's been made possible by the amazing subscriber base who have just hit that subscribe button and just supported me on this journey. And I'm going to ask you if you could do the same today. If you enjoy this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button or a follow if you're on audio only. It truly makes more of a difference than you could ever imagine. And honestly, just every subscriber that goes into that number, it just contributes more to getting better and better guests on the show. So if you could just hit that subscribe button, or if you've already done that, maybe give it a share around or leave a rating and a review. It truly makes a massive difference to getting the show to the true vision I have for it. So guys, without further ado, let's get over to the episode and enjoy. Cheers. Boss, how's it going today? Welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Louis. It's going great, and I am glad to be here. What a privilege to get to chat with you and the great folks out in the audience there.
Damn right. I'm just, so excited about this podcast. And obviously just saw you on the Blue Angels movie. And just what an incredible piece and everything that you spoke about there and everything you stand for. I love, and I can't wait to share it with the people who are listening in today. So for the people who don't know who you are, if they're not based in aviation or if they just want to figure out, what's going on here, what's this talk going to be about? So elevator pitch, 30 to 60 seconds roughly. Just kind of a bit about who you are. I know it's a mouthful to pack into a small amount of time, but just kind of a little bit about who you are, what you've done, your day job, and just an intro and kind of the life of you, basically. Then we'll dig into it on the big scale.
Sounds great, Louis. I just came from the Midwest of the U.S., got to join the Navy and learn how to fly, and I enjoyed it, found things along the way that helped me to grow, both in my leadership and team building. And just in my experiences flying, I got more flight time than anybody in the Navy by the time I left, because I just loved it. I loved slipping the surly bonds, as the poem goes, right? So I did that and learned how to fly. Had a lot of great experiences in my Navy career. One of them is leading the Blues on 3 occasions, the Blue Angels, and then on to FedEx to fly and take some of what I learned in the Blue Angels to them. And then when I kind of left FedEx, I had a chance to go on the talk circuit and talk about what I love to do and how to build teams and how to achieve excellence. And from there, about 5 years ago, I came up with the idea for a movie, and I know we'll want to talk about that a little bit. And I hope a lot of people that are listening have had a chance to see it on Amazon Prime. But it's a great movie, in my opinion. My maybe not so humble opinion, but I liked it. But that's kind of who I am, where I've been. I'm out here in Portland, Oregon, so enjoying life.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask then, just to kind of give people a bit of a picture of just how big scale this is. So what were those final flight hours? What did it all tally up to in the end?
Oh, in military flight hours, and nothing bigger than an F-18, really. So it wasn't like, droning along and just logging hours watching the clouds go by. About 8,300 hours and about 750 carrier landings. So it's not for that many hours, not all that many carrier landings, but it's a pretty good number of carrier landings. And I took off. I landed as many times as I took off, so that was a good thing. So about 8,300 hours, and mostly in small tactical type airplanes.
Wow, unbelievable. That's a whole lot of hours. And like you said, if that's all in fighter aircraft single seat, then the time doesn't go too quickly right there, does it? But okay, so I want to on the show, we're so big on backstory and hearing interesting stories and kind of being inspired and just kind of getting a picture of, who you are, where you came from, that kind of thing. So the big first question really is just kind of, can you tell us a bit of a story about your backstory? What kind of the early influences were in your life that inspired you to get into the career that you went to in the military, the Navy, aviation? Was it a family thing? Was it a you thing? Just kind of talk to us about the initial entry and why you went down the path.
Yeah, it kind of shocks people. The closest I got to aviation as a kid was flying balsa wood airplanes off the top of a skyscraper in Cincinnati when I was like, 8, 9, 10 years old. Probably not something I should have done, but you get up there and it was a little more free activity than it's controlled now. So that was fun. And I used to build little plastic model airplanes, the Hasegawa and the wonderful model Revell, different kinds of models of airplanes. So I was fascinated by that, but it was never like one of these, the twinkle in your eye, and that's what I want to do when I grow up. Believe it or not, I had other aspirations. Very humble. I wanted to work on the railroad. I wanted to drive spikes or whatever it took to make the big bucks, when you get out of high school, which in hindsight, So my mom gave me my first second chance by saying, you need to go to college because we haven't had anybody in our family go. And I had a C average. So I told her, Mom, I don't have the grades and we don't have the money. She said, we'll
Wow.
find some place. She drove me around and we found a place that took me on academic probation the first semester. So I'm going to take a break there. Anything on that is crazy? I mean, it's all crazy. I went on, but I did go to college. I didn't shine. I was in the lower half of the class when I graduated. And then it was time to go serve my country. And I was happy to do that, but I wanted to do something that would give me a skill. And I thought, okay, I've got a college degree. What can I do? And I thought, flying. That would offer me, I think, a lifetime skill flying for the airlines when I get out. So I thought I wanted to fly something with multiple engines and big and not so pretty, it didn't matter. All I wanted to do was learn how to fly big airplanes so I could be an airline pilot. Got in, and we started off officer training in Pensacola, Florida, where the Blue Angels are based. And so we're out there. It's perspiring, humidity, heat, walking, marching, and then the Blue Angels would come back from their weekend trips, and they'd be flying overhead, and they were flying F4s. And I thought, wow, look at the power, look at the beauty. And I thought, well, maybe I don't want to fly something so big. That was big, but huge in size. So I kind of changed my thoughts and thought I want to be a jet pilot, a tactical tail hooker, tail hook pilot, landed on ships. And that's when I turned my attention to that and had a bunch of squadrons and duties and taught air combat maneuvering, dogfighting. That was a blast. I had two full tours of doing that. And then I led an F-18 squadron from there. From the F-18 squadron, I was, I don't know why they picked me, but they picked me to lead the Blues. I was, there was some pretty stiff competition, but I got to lead the Blues. And that's kind of my early stuff and what led me to where I am now.
So what was that first experience flying an aircraft like? Obviously non-commercial, but just, what was that first moment like? How did it shape that future in the career there? And what was it, I guess? I'm just so curious. And how did it feel? I mean, obviously something like tactical or, non-commercial, like I said. So yeah, what was that first experience for you?
First flight was in a T-34B Bonanza, single engine propeller driven airplane, orange and white as they traditionally are in naval training, naval aviation training. And it was amazing to be in the front seat, be right on the nose of the airplane, if you will, and have things whizzing by in the air. It was the second time in my life that I'd actually flown in an airplane. My first time was in a Ozark Airlines way back in the day in the central part of the U.S. Fly a turboprop as a passenger flying out to Kansas to talk to Navy recruiters, actually.
Mm.
So my first flight was a little bit daunting. I thought I'll never know how to do that. I'll never figure this out. There's too much going on. Uh, Most I'd ever done was drive a car. So it wasn't like it was going to be natural for me. So I had to work really hard. And what I found out right away in naval aviation is you work hard, you're going to move, you're going to achieve things. And along the way, when you do that, you take care of your wingmen, you take care of the people around you. No man, no woman left behind, bring everybody along at the same time. And I think that sense of camaraderie and teamwork and um, being loyal to others was really a big thing for me. It really helped me understand and understand the motivation that people get from being close in their relationships. So that was more than you asked for. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, you keep going on as much as you like. I'm loving it. So I know you kind of joked about it in the last part there and stuff, and you kind of said, don't know why they picked me, but on a serious note, why did they pick you? Did he ever have that conversation with the CEO at the time and say, "Hey, what did you see in me?" Obviously, it was a good choice considering that you were the only person who did it 3 times over. So clearly there was some perception there by the CEO at the time. So I guess talk to me about
Yeah,
that. What do you think
yeah.
they saw?
The incumbent commanding officer, boss, flight leader, had not really wasn't in the selection process. It was a board of former Blue Angels and senior military officers that picked the boss. For all the other wingmans, that selection occurred within the team itself. So that's when you're, a jury of your peers, if you will, right? But they were all the people you were going to have to work with. But in my case, got down to 6 finalists for the job. And a bunch of them, I saw some of these fellas, and one was the commanding officer of Top Gun. And I thought to myself, I don't have a chance.
Was
And
that was that? I just got to interrupt you. Was that Trotz or was that someone else?
what it was Trotz. Trotz came after that,
Okay.
a couple of years after that. But it was another great guy who I still am friends with and talk with every once in a while. So I thought, and look at this field I'm competing with. So what that did, it made me actually totally relaxed because it pulled me away from Japan, where I had been flying in a forward deployed air wing, back to the States and having some in Corpus Christi, having some real Mexican food, which I love, and it was a an event where I was just totally honest. I said, well, now I'm not even worried about what they might want to hear. Here's what, when I get the questions, I'm just going to answer it in my way, the way I would do things, and the way I would react, and how I would motivate the team. And so being relaxed like that I think helped me get selected. I also showed a great interest in the men that worked for me. I wanted to find out how they were doing. So I was making calls, and apparently somebody saw me doing that, checking what we call message traffic, the news from the Pentagon about who got promoted and who got selected for this and that. I was really interested in how my guys had done. And so they said, this looks like a guy. One of the fellows told me, said, you look like a guy that takes care of your troops. That's the kind of the expression, take care of your troops. And I did. I was very concerned about that because I want them all to achieve as high as they possibly can. And how do we get them to those levels? And that's what I was interested in. A little more basic than leading the Blue Angels, where you got all kinds of public interaction, which is also very, very important. So I got selected. Don't ask me how. I think it was a fluke. I got to lead the team 3 times. I think because they thought maybe doing it 3 times will get it right. Maybe that third time will be a chance for him to get it right. That's
Right. So when was that transition then in all of that from the F4 to the F18? And so when did you come into play there? And also just tell me the story of what it was like when you first realized you got selected. Was it a call? Was it an email? Did you have to go to a meeting? Did you walk out the room and it was like, yes, done it? How did that look? And what was it like for the first time sitting in a Hornet?
Yeah, I'll go back to what you said about first. The team was flying the F4 when I joined the Navy. They transitioned during the 80s when there's a fuel crisis to a smaller jet, the A4 Skyhawk, a single engine subsonic, wonderful airplane. Probably of all the airplanes I've flown, probably the one I would have in my garage if I could have an airplane would be the A4. And then in the late 80s, they wanted to get into something more high performance. And the F-18A and B had been around for about 5 years, and they decided this is the plane we need to have the Blue Angels fly. I wasn't part of that transition, but I came in, I was like the third boss, the third leader after they had transitioned from the A4 to the F-18. Beautiful airplane. That's what I was commanding in a squadron on an aircraft carrier, F-18, an F-18 unit group. So I had experience in the airplane. Now you ask about the selection. How did I find out? I actually did my interview, walked outside into the hallway and waited. Actually, I think it was till the next day after they had interviewed everybody and they called me in. They said, "Well, you're the guy." And I said, "What? No way. No way." They said, "Yes, sir." And I was extremely surprised and pleased and uh, pretty much, just it was an incredible news for me. I never thought I'd be the person they'd select, but they did. And we moved forward with it. I checked out of my squadron that I was leading in the Philippines. They were headed west, and they actually went into Desert Storm after I left. And so I really missed that because that's what you look forward to is working with your comrades to achieve success. But I knew I would have to do that with the Blue Angels as well. So I went back to Pensacola, Florida, the home base of the Blues, and jumped into a blue jet, and it was time to go. And the right wingman was in his second year, so he's in charge of training the new boss when there's a new boss. So it's a 2-year rotation. And I came in there and I relied on his call sign was Bush. I relied on Bush to show me the ropes. And that certainly happened. And I could digress into what happened in my actual first ride in the Blues on a blue jet in the back seat of one of the solos. But if you saw the movie, you saw the centrifuge. Well, I didn't have a centrifuge to show me high G forces. I was in the back seat of one of the solo pilots, and I got my taste of taking a nap in an airplane,
Okay,
unintended.
go into it. I want to hear about this then because I know you said that you're part of an F-18 squadron, so obviously you had time around those jets and in those jets. But obviously the Blues, it's a whole different ball game. So yeah, what happened? I mean, talk to me about it.
Well, so I'm sitting in the ready room and the current team boss at that time. We had a nice onboarding process. It was about 6 or 8 weeks of just hanging with the squadron, learning about the culture, about the procedures, about the way they interacted with the public, seeing how rich and wonderful that was. But you got to catch the essence of the flying. So you got to start learning the mechanics of it, right? So one day the team's ready to go out to practice, and they had some two-seaters, and the boss came up to me and said, "Hey, you want to go flying?" I said, "Sure. I've just come from the fleet. I can handle this." He said, "Okay, we got a two-seater. One of the solo pilots, the lead solo pilot, is going to fly you in the back seat of his airplane." And just to give you a sampling of what we do, and I thought, oh, okay, this would be great. And if you've ever seen a Blue Angel air show, there's 6 airplanes total. The first 2/3, the 4 work together in what they call the diamond. So they do all these really graceful, beautiful, tight formation maneuvers in front of the crowd. But once they go away, then the solos come in, the 2 other airplanes, 5 and 6, and they do head-ons and they do high performance turns. So I thought, okay, I'm get to fly with one of these guys. So we got out there, we took off, did a dirty roll on takeoff. So you leave the landing gear down, you roll the airplane, it settles back down, looks kind of ooh and ah, like it's going to maybe touch down. And of course, it's measured well. And I thought, that's not bad. That's pretty cool. I think I can handle something like that. And we get out there into the operating area and into the show as it progresses. And the guy in the front seat said, hey, mini boss. They didn't call me the boss until they called me the mini boss until I took over. Mini, you ready to put on some G's here? We're gonna put it in a high performance turn. I said, oh, sure, I can handle this. he rolls it in. I'm watching the G meter. So we're all sitting here right now at 1G, double our weight because of defying the force of gravity, 2Gs, 3Gs, and on up to as high as you can handle. So I'm watching the G meter, and I've been at 7, 8Gs before, but that's when I'm flying the airplane, not riding. So I watched the G meter. It goes 5, 6. I went, oh, this is getting pretty heavy. 6.5, clunk. I had a G-induced loss of consciousness. I was out. I didn't know what happened.
I mean,
I guess he rolled the airplane out and said, "How's it going back there, Minnie?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's yeah, great, great." He said, "Well, good, because in about 2 minutes we're going to do it again." I go, "Oh, deep breath. Oh, okay." A little squeak in my voice. I wasn't too sure I want. We get another turn, 5, 6, 6.5, and I was out. Asleep again, if you will. That G-induced loss of consciousness is really a strange feeling. You have no idea immediately when you come out of it, your brain has been deprived of blood because of the G forces. So you don't know who you are, what you are, where you are. You have no instinct of that for about 5 seconds. And then finally the fog goes away and the blood comes back in your head and you start thinking again. And I thought, man, this is tough. I'm going to have to really, toughen up here and learn how to handle these G's if I'm going to do this job. I actually had a little bit of a lack of confidence. So I had to really up my belief in myself. And that was a challenge. But we got it done. So that was my first exposure, my first ride in a blue F-18.
Quick ad break here, guys. Just want to introduce you to Shopify. Shopify is the all-in-one e-commerce platform that runs basically everything I'm doing, from my personal website to my business websites. It truly is a phenomenal system, and I have a way for you guys to get started today for just £1 building your business, whether that's personal brand, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's a blog. It has everything. It has its own app store that can get you basically every feature you could expect from an online store, and it really just works out of a fantastic all-in-one system, which I can only highly recommend enough. And you guys can start for just £1 today. It's an incredible offer. Absolutely amazing. And the link to that is in the bio, or I'll put it up in the tab at the top. I think it'll be top right at the screen for you guys right now. So yeah, guys, check it out. Make sure to get this offer and yeah, get started. It's fantastic. That's cool. That's really cool. Obviously, I hate to point out the obvious, but I guess that's a bit of a problem if the future boss of the Blue Angels is taking a nap at 6.5G. So I got to ask, I've got this trip coming up. I'm going out to the States in September, doing something pretty similar to the Blues and pulling a whole load of G's, a whole load of times. And I got to ask then, so lace it into the story here, and put some tips in there too. But how did you improve that then? How did you go from 6.5 to Blue Angels level? And what was the physical training like? Talk to me about like what you were working on. How'd you get from there to there?
Well, we worked out together. So, every day we went to the gym as a group, especially on the road. We would have a gym picked out for us by our planners, whatever show site, whatever city, whatever town, wherever we were. We had a gym assigned that we could access. So we'd work out together for about an hour, hour and a half. Great for camaraderie, great for building relationships and teasing each other, being humble, but working out with weights, getting really strong so that when you have to experience those G forces, you can tighten before you get into it, get up to 5, 6 Gs and more. You tighten up your leg muscles, you tighten up your abs, you tighten up all the muscles in your lower body from your chest down. You tighten them really tight. And you'll hear in some of the movie pieces that you see, with some of the film video, you'll hear the pilot going, It's called that. It's G straining. You're straining your body. You're tightening up all your muscles so the blood doesn't go south, doesn't drop into your lower body. It stays up in your head where you stay conscious, and you have control of it. As the being at the controls makes a whole lot of difference, because you know how to increase that straining maneuver as you increase the G's. So you learn, and you work out with the weights, you stay strong, and that's how you develop that G tolerance. And the more and more you do it, the more you know how you're going to tolerate it, create a sense of tolerance by really tightening up your body and being ready for it.
Right. Got loads of real big fitness fanatics and fitness fans in the audience. I know that for a fact. So I'd hate not to ask the question, but like specifically on the kind of like focus levels, yeah, what was a typical training session like for you guys out there? Hour and a half? You know, what were you focusing on? I've heard other people talk a lot about a lot of deadlift stuff, a lot of kind of short burst sprint based work. You know, what kind of stuff were you doing?
Yeah, well, to build up to an air show takes 10 weeks of flying twice a day, 6 days each week to get to where we can be 3 feet apart at 400 miles an hour, right? So it's a move in from a wider formation into a closer formation slowly, and work as two planes for a while, just so you have the freedom of moving where you need to go. And then you work as four planes in the diamond. The solos are out working. So it's all out in the desert of Southern California. There's a desert in the Imperial Valley at a base called El Centro. And that's where we would go. We'd go there for right after the first of the year, go there for 10 weeks and learn how to do this stuff. And obviously you're going to have setbacks. You've got to be strong in your focus and in your intention to get it done. So, and then once the season begins in the second week of March, that's when we go on the road for probably 35 different show sites, 35 weekends in a different place. It's brutal, but you still brief and practice with the same intent, seeking perfection. Like Vince Lombardi, the famous American football coach, would say, seeking perfection every time you go out there, knowing that perfection is never attainable, but along the way you find excellence, and that's what we shot for, was perfection. And we flew the exact same, whether it's a practice or an air show, and we briefed with the same intensity. So about a 45-minute brief and then a 45-minute flight. We didn't go much beyond 45 minutes. We're at a higher power setting. We're burning some fuel, and you want to make it an action-packed, intense 45 minutes for the crowd. Of course, then you had the fun of the walk down to the airplane, the taxi out, the walk back, and then the crowd interaction with signing autographs and that sort of thing. So that's what the routine was like. That's what getting your focus was about. First, when we came into the briefing, we already had some beliefs in what we could do. So we had established kind of our individual belief levels. Now you bring all those together in a briefing, and you start talking about how you're going to get this done and building confidence and reinforcing the trust. So trust and gratitude, but trust was huge. You can imagine, like you saw in the movie, this guys got down to 12 inches apart. How do you do that? Huge amount of training and expertise, but the trust had to be there, the trust in each other, that you would be able to do this without creating an issue.
Yeah,
So that's a
absolutely.
long explanation. Sorry, Louis.
Definitely. No, no, no. I love it. You keep on going. So let's get into, I mean, obviously looking at your stuff, the talks and everything you do engagement wise, your big one is leadership, and your big one is the lessons that you learn from being the leader three times over and your whole career. There's just so much to unpack there. But I guess if we start off on the base level and then work our way into it a bit more and kind of unpack it, what were some of the key leadership qualities that enabled you to take on such a demanding role multiple times? Yeah, just talk to me a little bit about kind of, I guess, the impact you tried to have there, how you took leadership and what you came away with, and then we'll go into it in a bit more detail.
Sure, sure. Leadership, there's thousands of books about leadership, right? Everybody wants to write a book about leadership. I think, but for me, what it was along the way, not always in a position of importance in a leadership role, maybe two or three young men or women working for you, but you learned little traits from others leading you, the people that you followed, that you took orders from or took ideas from or direction or assignments from, you would see that. And the way I looked at it was, how effective was that? How effective is that person in inspiring me, motivating me? Is it a positive inspiration or a motivation, or is it a fear-based motivation? And that's one thing as a leader, you have to be careful that you don't make what you ask others to do based on fear. Make it based on positive outcomes and what they can learn and grow from. If we, what I saw was, like I said, different attributes of different leaders. Now, some I loved. I loved a leader that could tell a great joke, that just cut the tension, and I thought, I love that as a leadership trait, but I can't tell a joke worth the darn. So I said, okay, well, I'll have to build up other things, right? And relationships with people. That's huge. Understanding them the best you can, and trying to find out what their troubles are and help them with those. And if it's a weakness in the job, find out what that is, and help them, put people around them, mentor them, give them the tools, the training, the time, and the expectations of doing that job. So make everything perfectly clear. As a leader, you have the opportunity to do that. I learned along the way. I made mistakes. So I'm telling you that. I'll digress here a little bit on my call sign. So when you get to the Blues, as number one, you become known as boss. And so your old fleet call sign goes away. You're just called boss. The people around you, the friends, and even the people that you meet on the road, they'll learn to call you boss, which is kind of fun. But before that, my fleet call sign was rug dance. Now, so I told you about not doing everything right. So a rug dance was going up, standing in front of the commanding officer's desk. His office was probably carpeted, a little nicer than the rest of what we lived in, and shuffling your feet in front of him, saying, "Yes, sir, I screwed up. I won't do it again, and I'm sorry, and that was a bad idea on my part." So your feet shuffling was called a rug dance. So getting called on the carpet. And so that was, when I talked about leadership and making mistakes, yeah, sometimes you go out on a limb and you think something's attainable, or you go out and try something individually, or you push the edge of the envelope too hard, kind of like I did, and you can pay the consequences. So I was fortunate that I had a lot of rug dances, but what I call it second chances. A lot of the things that I would have called luck over the course of my career, I found out were maybe a little divine intervention there that saved me from a worse consequence. So that's I don't know how I got deep into that, but
Right.
try to pursue what you were asking about.
Definitely.
Leadership, I think. Yeah.
Well,
Learning, and
yeah. Well, I bet
in the
you're absolutely
Blues, I
thrilled
learned
of that.
something.
I bet you're thrilled. Boss definitely has a better ring to it than Rug Dance does. I can say that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So you just
Does.
you just kept it going then? Who let you carry it on then?
Well, you know, y- I was smart enough to learn from my mistakes, you know. So, and what I got to see there was, why did I do that? And I thought about how would others do that, and what creates those decisions. I tried to apply that to the people that worked with me, around me, for me, and the people for whom I worked. I wanted to keep that trust up. So I kind of tried to weed out the things that would create distrust or well, frankly, dishonesty, if you will, to make it a fearless workplace based on performance and achievement and growth. I always told the people that work for me, I want you to take my job someday. And so here's how I got to this, and this what I'm the other thing is, as a leader, sometimes you can walk around with a frown because it's just so much stress. It may not be an individual, it just could be the stress of the board of directors or your bosses or whatever. And if you're a leader, you have to kind of internalize that, and keep it away from the folks that work for you. Show that being in and actually feel that being in a leadership position is a fun thing to do. You have to express that so that you help motivate others to want to be leaders too. And that's what I found. It was, and what I learned in the Blue Angels is something totally different from what I had seen in the rest of the military. It was much more democratic, less authoritarian. I didn't just pound my fist on the table and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, get after it. No, it was like, okay, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? How do you think we'll best be able to do this? What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? And it wasn't that free flowing, it was structured, but we captured all those things that could help us be our absolute best. So that was part of the leadership. And then the final part was the debrief. And I can talk about that a little bit with you as we go along.
I'd love to. Yeah. Before we get into the debrief stuff, which I think is so important, and I spoke to XO John Fay about the debrief as well. I'd love to go into a bit more of you too. But what you were saying there about kind of, how the team collaborated, made it about the family and the whole team rather than a boss. Because I suppose the one thing I could say about that nickname is that a boss tends to be someone who kind of is a boss, right? But actually it's more of a leader, isn't it, in that kind of sense? So is that something that all teams should have? Is that something that was exclusive to the Blues? How could a team get better at that kind of a thing and building that sort of teamwork without losing that sense of authority? Talk to me a bit about that.
I loved what you said there, Louis, about the word boss not being an authoritarian figurehead, right? But being a way to communicate with somebody on a casual basis, if you will, more friendship relationship based than structure based or power based, right? Take the power out of it, but always have the responsibility as the leader. That's your responsibility to take the power away from making it. Again, I use the word fear a lot, but just pulling fear out of there.
Guys, just to let you know, Talk4 Podcast is on Patreon and it also has a Spotify subscription too. So guys, if you are really enjoying the show and you enjoy all the past episodes too, and you just want to pitch in just a tiny amount every month, even just a couple of pounds a month or something to support the show, help me get better guests on and keep upgrading what we're doing here, please do consider heading over there and just giving me some support. It means a massive amount. Guys, back to the episode now. Enjoy. Yeah, so let's go into just talking about, imagine like a sports team or you've got a team of people who are in the same situation. How can you kind of get a bit of what the Blues had there in that sense of the team there? So how do you, as a leader, bring people around you into the fold to collaborate without losing the sense of authority? So what you had in the Blues, how can you kind of copy and paste that into teams? And does that have to be the case with teams? Would that make a great team everywhere? Or is it kind of some teams different?
Certainly. The structure of the Blues was that the boss was what they call in sports a player coach, right? I was one of the players. I was out there leading the team, but in the formation with them. And as you did that, again, the development of trust and in the culture of the Blues, there was this deep feeling of gratitude. And we called it a glad to be here sense of gratitude, put that in quotation marks, glad to be here. It became a catchphrase for having the trust that made you glad to be here, had the trust in each other, that each other was covering one another's six, if you will. Heard that expression. Because you were, and that created that glad to be here. So it was a twofold element in that foundation. One was the concrete of gratitude, and the other was the rebar that held the concrete together of trust. And as you lead, as you bring that to a team, know that having them sense that you were glad to be here would also help them to feel that gratitude. It's much it's been proven scientifically and through studies that it's much easier to follow somebody that has a sense of gratitude, that shows a sense of gratitude. And I think as a leader, you need to have that sense of of being pleased to be where you are and with whom you're with. You have to have that. You have to have that to get the best out of your people, and it needs to be genuine. So when it comes from you and it permeates the entire business, the structure of the people that work there, and they sense that you're proud to be doing what you're doing, and you're so pleased to be with the people you're with. I think that's a critical element of any leadership opportunity, is to have that personality and that sense of gratitude.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think what we kind of touched on there was at least quite a bit of team leadership stuff. But I personally believe, and with some of the great people who I've spoken to on the show before, I do also believe that the beginning of great leadership starts from within as well, in the individual, in the person. And I'm sure you probably noticed it by now, being on the call for a while and stuff, but I've got this up here. And, when that came through in the post, it was, I think it was a friendship token more than anything from John Fay. But I was also a commemoration of just a great podcast that we had, and how successful it was. And I feel like the Blues have always been about inspiring excellence and inspiring a culture of excellence, and it's in the people around the world really too. So I think the thing I wanted to ask you now, in terms of that earning that individual thing, the SEAL teams, I know they talk about earning the Trident every day, but if there was one or a few things that you could say someone who's not a Blue Angel could live up to, earning that, or feeling like you're kind of, you're part of that, you're doing the right thing, and you're kind of involved in that excellence culture, what would you do, or what would you say to a person to do every day, or how to live their life to earn that and keep that up on the wall and know that it belongs there?
I would say it goes back to a primary sense of being glad to be here. But let me dive a little deeper into that. And that is that you appreciate everybody around you, no matter what they do. And I carry that out to talking to people that may be at the lower strata of performance or of responsibility, maybe because that's where they want to be, or maybe that's the best they can do. People sweeping the floors, it doesn't matter. Being kind, being appreciative, showing some gratitude for what they do. And we did that in the Blue Angels. No matter what anybody did, they were respected. So that sense of respect for others is so crucial. And it creates such a sense of ownership. Like even walking through an airport, looking at somebody sweep the floors, if the concourse is spotless or beautiful, honestly, to say, look over at them. Those people are never looked at. They're like a piece of brick in the wall. Nobody cares, right? But if you can look over at somebody like that, and the same thing applies to your work, the people in your work. If you can look over at someone like that and say, thank you for keeping this place so beautiful, great job. That takes 5 seconds. What does that do for that person? That makes them think, wow, somebody noticed how hard I'm working. I might, I'll keep working hard, because it's my work is appreciated. I'm respected. If we go through life and we never express that to others, and again, I don't want to use the term the lowest of the low, but the people that are just out there struggling to get by, they need to understand that they're respected when they're doing what they're doing. I think it's just crucial. That's something that, because I had issues, as a youngster, and struggled with not being the popular kid, the king of the class, or the head of the ball, or whatever. No, I could see how hard it was to move forward when you're not respected. And so I take that, and I tried to do that with the people that work for me too, to help them understand how important that was. It's easy to respond to the CEO of an organization when they want to talk to you about something. How easy is it, and how how important is it to talk to somebody that's in the lowest paying job in your outfit, or even away from you? So that's some of my philosophy on interactions and leadership.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, there you kind of, you alluded to the respect and the honor, and being glad to be here, and seeing the people around you and appreciating them. But there wasn't anything in there about the hard work kind of stuff. But it makes me interested then, because does that come second place to that respect and that honor and that appreciation for around you? Like, if you had to kind of draw like a pyramid, so the top of the pyramid is that first attribute in a person that makes them a great leader or a great person that can live up to that level that you guys had in the team, and I'm sure you still do carry forward now. What comes after that? What kind of builds a really strong leader, do you think, in terms of attributes that you could say, if you have something like that on your wall, it's not just sitting there, it's being earned and appreciated every day? What do you have to do, what do you have to be to do that?
You have to be caring. You have to care about the people around you, and you have to care about the people that you interact with, even if they're not part of your command structure or the structure of the enterprise. If you have that genuinely in your heart, you're gonna be a Blue Angel, and no matter what you do, you're going to elevate your team. And it's about putting your team at the pinnacle of that performance pyramid. It's not so much putting you individually. What I like to talk about, and what the team talks about, is a purpose larger than yourself, right? You are striving to bring your organization, the Blue Angels, division at a major company. You're striving to bring them to the top of that performance pyramid. And you don't do that by trying to create your own image of excellence. You want to create an image, or the actual essence of excellence, in the organization, the part of the organization you're in. And it's about not putting yourself up front, not pulling the spotlights onto you, not hugging up on what you know and not letting anybody else know it, because that makes you more important, right? You're free with your information. You share, and you encourage others to share. That's when we get into the debrief. Everybody gets to share their thoughts. And by doing that, you get incredible outcomes. So I think it's about being open, honest, caring, to be a Blue Angel, and oh, by the way, learn how to fly pretty well too.
Yeah, it's definitely
Although,
a big
here's
part.
something for you, Louis. Here's something for you, Louis. We never picked anybody based on their flying performance. We picked them to be a Blue Angel based on their personality. So it goes back to that caring, that sense of gratitude, that you can endure with it, even when it gets to be tiring and hard, to put that forward, that goodness that emits and oozes from you. Sometimes it gets tiring to put that out in front, but you have to learn how to do that. And that's how we picked our people, because that's what the Blues are all about, is ambassadors of goodwill, right? And the bottom line is recruiting. You want especially young people to see what you do and say, you know what, I'd like to have a part of that. I'd like to be involved in something like that.
Definitely.
So it's about how you project, and the sense of gratitude that you can bring out and help others achieve it.
Definitely. Let's spend a couple of minutes quickly on purpose then, because you spent a bit of time talking about that. But if you had someone listening in right now, who you may well do, to this podcast, or in one of your engagements or something, um, it doesn't matter where that person is in life, but let's just say they have no purpose, or they feel like they've got no purpose, or the work that they do, the job that they're in, it doesn't have an end goal. It's not doesn't fulfill them. They're lacking a reason why, or a purpose as to why. They just get up, they get going, they get it done because they feel like they have to do it, but they don't have the drive or the mission or the enthusiasm or that feeling of like a family, or like they're having to do this because this is what we're going for here. I guess, where do you find purpose if you feel like you have none? How would you advise someone?
One thing I think you could do is, if you have that kind of relationship, go to whomever you're working for and say, look, I don't feel like I'm getting fulfilled here by what I'm doing. I'm doing my best, but I'd like to do more, or I'd like to go into R&D. I'd like to go do something else in the company. Um, that's a place to start and see how open your boss is, your supervisor, whomever you report to, and just tell them, you want to do better, and you have a different goal, and advise me. What do you think I should do? But also keep your peripheral vision wide open. Look for those things that might attract you to go do something else. And if that's what you want to do, go for it.
Mm.
But do your research. Make sure that job is as sweet looking as it seems. Talk to people in that world before you make that leap. Talk to them, but give yourself a chance with what you're doing right now. Take a look at it. Think, how can we make this better? And a lot of times just having a boss that'll listen to you and give you feedback. Just listening, first of all, you get to express, and maybe you learn something from what you're saying and what's coming out of your heart. Maybe you'll learn something about your thoughts that you didn't know were there. Maybe this is a better job than you thought it was when you start talking about it, or the boss says, well, this is how, let's try something else. Let's try another way to go, to make this job suit you better. Hopefully that's where you could go.
Definitely. Guys, are you seeing this podcast and thinking, hey, I wish I could do something like this? Or, hey, have you got an idea for a podcast which you think, hey, this is a great place to start? Well, this is going to help you out, guys. I've got an Amazon profile right now, which has a list of all the equipment I use that you can get started with. Literally just go onto there, have a look at the stuff, grab a few bits and bobs. All you really need is a mic and a good webcam to begin with, and the right editing software. So guys, go and check that out. Click the link in bio for the Amazon wish list and start that podcast. It's an incredible networking tool, which honestly has just changed my life for good. Check it out. Definitely. That's really good advice. So last thing I kind of want to touch into here in terms of the actionable stuff and stuff that people can really take away and apply into their lives. Something that we spoke about quite a bit with the other teams as well. It's just the debrief. Like, it's just Blue Angels debrief. That's like bread and butter, isn't it? They go together. That's your thing. So something I asked people before, and I'd love to kind of go into you about too, is just what makes a great debrief. So if you had to kind of break things down and say what you took away from the Blues, where would you start? So you sit down at the round table, you got your drinks, you're ready to go. What's that first line of action in terms of making a great debrief? What do you go into? How do you finish it up? And what can people take away from that and start to apply? Like, what does it look like?
It's totally different than anything I had experienced in the military. Fear was dissolved. There was no fear in the debrief. You walked into that debrief room, you hung your rank on the hooks outside the door. You still had the responsibility as a leader, but you come into that debrief knowing that because of the culture of the organization, the openness, the sense of gratitude and trust, that now was the time to get to right answers. And the only way to get to right answers is to let everyone have a voice and not to point fingers. So the way that debrief in the Blues would go is we'd walk in, have a soda after working so hard for an hour, sweating or whatever, maybe a sandwich. And then when it's time, I would just say, okay. And when they heard the word okay, it was silence, and we knew we were getting ready to debrief. And I would open the debrief as the boss, as the CEO, as the person in charge, as the department head, whatever was the lead in that event and in that debrief. Whoever had the lead starts out and says a general impression of the day. I thought that the weather was pretty good, a little bumpy here and there. We had a little trouble with this and that, but these were my mistakes. These were what I did wrong. Can you imagine that? A boss immediately saying, this is what I did wrong, and this is how I can do better, and I will fix what I had done wrong. I guarantee you that for tomorrow, I'll do it better. And that's it. And then you've made those opening remarks as the boss. You're not pointing fingers at anybody. You're not saying, "Hey, George, what happened on that one?" Accusatory or kind of a punishing question. No, everybody got to talk about what they had done and their mistakes, their individual mistakes. It was beautiful, the accountability. And somebody will say, well, you make yourself really vulnerable. I say, yeah, but there's strength in that. When you have trust in your teammates and they trust you and you have a sense of gratitude for being where you are, you're gonna learn to make that flow. I like to use the expression there are silent geniuses out there when you're in a debrief. You're talking about something that happened that are afraid to talk. They're afraid to say, well, this is what I did wrong. They're afraid that it's fear-based. We dissolve the fear, get it out of there so that you can get to the essence of this. You get to the right answers. It could be that 4 or 5 of you think something should go one way, and then the sixth person to speak said, well, maybe we could have tried this. And it's like a big light bulb comes on because you take thoughts from people of diverse backgrounds that you can get a different approach to it, a different look at it, a different evaluation. So that debriefing, the way the Blue Angels did it, that's the bread and butter. That's the secret sauce of improvement because you find out what could have gone better. And now you can change your beliefs and what you can do as an organization and improve those. It's like flying 3 feet apart when the show season begins. By mid-season, we get down to 18 inches because we have watched it happen. We talk about it. We talk about how we can do that, and we elevate our beliefs and what we can do. You can do that in a company. You can do that in a surgical team. You can do it in a sports team. You can do it anywhere by using that framework where you get through the debrief and you capture the good stuff. I remember, if I've got a few more minutes, I flew for a major airline when I retired from the Navy, and it was a great experience, great company. But they started having hull losses, crashes, right out of the blue. Nobody knew why. And I said, we never, and they asked some of us that were in semi-leadership positions, if you will, what do you think's going on? And I thought about it overnight, and I said, look, we get out of the airplane and run to the hotel to get some sleep, and we never talk about that flight. We never capture the good, and we never talk about what wasn't so good and how to fix it. And so we got what we call a debrief into the checklist before we left the airplane. And it didn't have to be long. So there's many ways you can do a debrief. It can be 2 minutes, it can be 45 minutes or an hour, like occasionally we saw at the Blues.
Yeah.
But you have to capture it, and you have to have it fear-based. I mean, you have to have it
Yeah,
not
no.
fear dissolved,
Definitely.
totally dissolved, where you feel comfortable talking about your mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the essence of it, Louis.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I can tell there's the core values. And yeah, we're doing good for time right now. So obviously we'd like to talk a bit about the movie and kind of the shameless plug stuff so we can find all your things too. But I figured as long as you got the time for it, I'd love to just ask one question because of a career like yours, you must have some just absolute hooters in there from just the story side of things and flights and great flights. So if you could tell us just one of those incredible stories of like a favorite moment or a flight or just something that you thought was so utterly bizarre or just insane or just something really, really cool. Is there a great story you got to share with us before we go into the shameless plug and round us off?
Most of the essence of what was rewarding was the interactions with people, but there was thousands and thousands of those, right? And people that you could surprise them so much if they're at the crowd line and they were in bib overalls or whatever, some kind of hardworking person, and you went to them to talk to them and the way they would light up. But let's talk about things that happened. One was we actually took the team to Moscow to fly an air show over Moscow in the 90s. And that was has never been done before, hasn't been done since. And I know things are rough now, but we got to go there and fly Kubinka and then over the city But one of the things we got to do, and not so much Blue Angel related, but was we swapped airplane rides. So I got to ride. So they had a team called the Russian Knights, and they flew Su-27 flankers. The airplane we had studied as a potential adversary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back in those days, the Cold War. And we arranged before we went to Moscow that we would fly in the back seat of some of their two-seaters, and we would take them in the back seats of our Hornets or F-18s. That was incredible to fly in the back seat of the top fighter in the Russian Air Force as a U.S. fighter pilot. I mean, it was just like, this is a dream, right? It can't be happening. And so I got to do that. And I think that was, as a singular memory, that stands out. But there's tons of wonderful things we got to do with it. You know, the opportunities that we had and the responsibilities sometimes that brought those opportunities. They were amazing.
Amazing. I've got to ask then, just quickly then. So, who passed out first? Did anyone pass out? Did their guys? Did your guys? What happened?
I, I flying with the Russians, I didn't, but I what I saw in the Su-27 flanker was the most powerful airplane I'd ever flown in, and I'd flown in the F-15 and of course Hornets and some other high performance jets. That had this, I mean, it just seemed like it had the most thrust to weight and just a powerful plane.
Mm.
So I took the flight leader of the Russian Knights. His first name was Vladimir, and I had met him in the U.S. Just another side story, but I had met him before, and I thought, what am I going to show him with my Hornet? It's not as powerful, but it's certainly as nimble, aerodynamically as worthy as his. What am I going to show him? I thought about my first ride with the Blues where I passed out. So I say, hey, Vladimir, I'm going to put it in a high performance turn. You ready for this? Da, da, da. I don't think he understood English, so he's just saying yes, yes, yes. I put it in the turn. I got it, and I get to about 6.5 Gs. I go, how, Vladimir, how's it going? She said, da, da, da. And I said, okay, I got to really yank this bad boy around. So I pulled it even harder, got to about 7. I said, Vladimir, what's up back there? And he said, it was silence. So I knew I'd got it. I knew I got it. So I rolled out, and the scary thing was he didn't say anything right away after we rolled out. I asked him, how you doing? And it was silence, you know. So I thought maybe I'd hurt him really bad, but I didn't. And that was fun. It was kind of fun to let him experience that, something I had seen.
Yeah.
And no G suits in the Blue Angels, and we didn't put him in a G suit either. So he had to do it on his own.
Then you guys got out the jet. What did he say?
Oh, he was just thrilled.
Oh,
He just
wow.
said, this was fantastic," and we both were. And we toasted those flights later that evening.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. What a really nice way to round it off. So well, I mean, that's been the 4 and quite a bit questions for today. I've absolutely loved it. It's been an honor to have you on. And I'd love to go into a bit of shameless plug time then. So boss, talk to me about the movie, where we can find it. Talk to me about your stuff, where we can find more about you. If someone wants to look at an engagement or go to something that you're collaborating in soon, where can we find all the stuff that is you? And yeah, just take these couple of minutes to just promote everything that you want to talk about and promote, and send my people to your stuff.
Well, thanks, Louis. The things I wanted to talk about most, I've talked about. The leadership, you know, the loving on people. I know that word loving, you don't hear that it's associated with the military too much, but I mean, you just get this trust level, right? And that's the most important thing in life. And loving your family, taking care of your families. Put that right up there at the lead of whatever you're doing in life. But what am I doing now? You know, we did make the movie. It was a 5-year endeavor, and we got it made in IMAX. And we're going to have an IMAX in museums by the end of the year, back in IMAX. But right now, you can't see it in IMAX. You can see it on Prime, and I know some people have these screens that are as big as a room, so it's kind of like IMAX, you know. But you can see it on Amazon Prime. It's just The Blue Angels, and it's got a 98% approval rating with a company called Rotten Tomatoes, kind of does the Hollywood evaluation of things. And it's loved. It's a loved movie. It's an hour and a half. It's all real. There's no phony stuff in it like Top Gun Maverick. No, no, no. There's a little bit of creative in that, but in ours, it's all a reflection of life and living life to its fullest and human achievement. What are the limits of human achievement? So I digress, but that's something that I'm really happy with. Got to be an executive producer, and I got a little bit of time in the movie, which I didn't want, but I did. And so that's fun. I don't, the only thing I get out of it is hearing from people that loved it, and that's satisfying. The other thing I do, I'm out talking. I do keynotes around the world. Dubai this year once, which was incredible, but all over the U.S. and coming to Europe, your side of the pond. Hopefully, pretty soon, Australia. I've been out there in Hong Kong and Philippines. It's just fun to talk about my experiences, but put them out there in not a lesson plan, but in ideas to embed in companies and teams, and how to achieve the highest level of performance based on building trust and confidence and gratitude in your organization. So I get to do that. I enjoy the heck out of it. I've lived it. I have a passion for it, and so that's what makes it fun for me, and hopefully for those that are, it creates growth and understanding and purpose in those that hear it, and that's as satisfying as it can be. I work with one of my former wingmen, John Foley, called sign Gucci. So I'm on his website at John Foley Inc. So John Foley Inc.com, and that's where you can dig in there and find me with him. He's awesome too, and I won't say too, but he's awesome. He's top dog.
Right.
That's what I'm doing. I'm loving life. Keep pressing ahead, coming up with new ideas every day. Some work, some don't. Don't be deterred. Seek your dreams, live your passion. That's all I can say.
Damn right. Oh man, thank you so much. Honestly, it's been an absolute honor. It's been an absolute just pleasure. So thank you for joining me today for the Talk4 podcast. It's been mind blower. One of those times, one of those days, one of those episodes that really sticks with me. So I can only say thank you enough, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for joining me today.
Louis. I'm glad to be here. Enjoy your ride with the Patriots.
I will.
You will love it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope I can display some British power and not do a 6.5 7G nap.
yeah, there you go. They'll teach you how. You'll do it. You'll have it fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, thanks, man. Okay, so guys, thank you for listening. This has been episode 118. And if you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones too, make sure to hit that subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. Signing off for now. Fights on, and just one last time. Just so glad to be here. Thanks, guys. See you next time.